Why do I want to copy Dick Cheney? Well, look, I'll be honest with you. Other than Senator Feingold, Dick Cheney is the guy that I most respect inside Washington, D.C. Now, people get up in arms when I say that, and Ben Mankiewicz has tried to disabuse me of that notion before. But I think we're having a miscommunication as to what the word respect means, right? It doesn't mean I admire him. It doesn't mean I like him. It doesn't mean I agree with him, because I certainly don't believe any of those things. In fact, I loathe him. How does that sound? But I do respect him. And there are some opponents that you might hate and think, are dirty cheats, etc., but still think, you know what, they get the job done, and there's something to be respected there. Dick Cheney has a will to power. You see, we get the politicians that we deserve, most of the time. And we get the politicians that our time calls out for. Now, people are always looking for a revolutionary leader, and they're hoping that Barack Obama is a revolutionary leader, but we're not going to get a revolutionary leader because we're not in revolutionary times. We're in times where the mainstream media tells us that things are going along smoothly and that we need to make sure that we don't pick a candidate that rocks the boat. So if you have a candidate that's an outlier, a Ron Paul, a Kucinich, or Gravel, or take your pick, a Jesse Ventura, they always tell you, no, don't go with them, don't go with them. They're going to rock the boat. And they tell you who's the safe mainstream candidate, and the mainstream candidates are the ones that go along to get along, right? And they go with basically the system that we have. So I am not surprised when Barack Obama is not a revolutionary leader. I will not be surprised when he's in office, if he is in office, and he gives us incremental change, right, rather than revolutionary change. And that incremental change in the right direction is, like said many, many times before, 1,000 times better than dramatic change in the wrong direction, which is what Bush and Cheney have given us, and which McCain promised to give us. So how does that lead into me respecting Dick Cheney? Here's how it leads into it. Because we were not in revolutionary times when Dick Cheney exercised his will to power. And he said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to rock this frickin' boat. I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to take us in an absolutely radical direction when the times and circumstances do not call for it. I'm going to find a way to gain control of the White House, and I'm going to institute what I believe are the proper ideas for executive power. And his ideas for executive power are absolutely radical. He doesn't really quite believe in the American system of government, doesn't trust our Justice Department, doesn't trust our system of justice, our system of laws, our Congress. He thinks we should have a very strong executive that can authorize torture, start wars whenever it wants, and spy on Americans, and ignore the Fourth Amendment, the Bill of Rights, and the Constitution. The list goes on and on. So how did this radical guy not only get in charge, but wind up actually changing all of that in the direction he wanted? Well, that's what we've got to discover. We've got to figure that out and then reverse it, okay? Because there's nobody else like him in the country. And as much as I admire and respect Senator Feingold, he is not, at this point, anywhere near, he has not had anywhere near the success that Dick Cheney has had in changing the system. I mean, look at what Cheney did. Cheney goes in, he just had a toehold at when Bush was nominated as president, George W. Bush. He said, oh, well, we'll put him on the Vice Presidential Selection Committee. And he said, all right, good enough for me. He selected himself as the Vice President, and he got the boy idiot to agree to that. Then he comes in as the Vice President. The Vice President is supposed to be powerless. That's what we've all been taught. That's what the mainstream media tells us. That's what the establishment tells us. And he said, yeah, that's interesting. Except instead of being powerless, I'm going to be all-powerful. And I'm going to run this government. And he did. And what we have to do, if we want to reverse what Cheney did, is find out what Cheney did and learn from what he did so that we can go and have just as much power and just as much influence and change things for the right direction just as well as Dick Cheney did. Because if we don't, the rest of it is nonsense.